viewers, and welcome to our sixth episode of the exclusive podcast for Lambda Testing. Here today we have with us Mudassar and Afsal, who join us in a conversation about how an employee-first approach is the right way to go. I'm Gayatri, your host and head of employer branding here at LambdaTest. Let me introduce our two guests to you today. We have with us Mudassar, who has a love for singing and firmly believes that if you can enjoy music, you can enjoy life. He loves spending time with his beautiful family and a little cat named Ada. And he also happens to head the customer engineering team here at LambdaTest. So hi, Mudassar.
Hello, Gayatri.
Hey. All right. And the next guest is Afsal, who's a passionate musician and wordsmith. Apart from his artistic knack, he's a keen learner of new businesses and how his skills can help develop this sector. He is also working with LambdaTest as a manager for our growth team and marketing. Hey, Afsal.
Hello, everyone.
Great. So we're really psyched to have you guys here for our sixth episode. And it so happens that in August, we are celebrating 6 years of LambdaTest. So it kind of resonates. All right. So like I said, we're talking about an employee-first approach. And Mudassar, you have built the customer engineering team here with us from scratch. So when you were doing that, what were the core basic values that you kind of instilled in your team? What mindset were you in, the kind of people that you want to hire?
Okay, that's a great question, Gayatri, to start off with. And I think when I joined LambdaTest, the passion that LambdaTest saw in me, I wanted to look at the same passion in others who I wanted in my team. The core values that I was looking for is ownership, dedication, and ability to help the customers and being customer-centric first. These are some key core values that I was looking for in terms of building a strong team, a team that I can depend upon and we can work together to make LambdaTest a big success. But having said that, I would love to understand from Afsal as well if he also shares something as to what does he feel about building a team.
Sure. And to start off, this is definitely a good question. And to me, when I built a team back in the organizations that I work with, I look for accountability, as Mudassar rightly said, like ownership. That's the first thing that you look for, right? And along with that, resilience, right? So you make a lot of errors and try to, fix or build on top of that. So you don't make the same errors again and again, right? You make, different errors, learn from it, and recover. So that is, again, the idea of machine learning. So I come from a tech background, so I correlate it in that sense. And third important, value that I look for is how well the team members can collaborate with each other. So that's very important. Otherwise, if you think that somebody else cannot teach you something, then that's where you are actually digging a hole for yourself.
That's a great point, Afsal. I mean, I can resonate by giving an example to you. So I was watching MotoGP as a Formula 1 races, and everyone goes to a pit stop, right, and for refueling, and you see 10 people out there doing 10 different things, right, and everybody is good at what they are doing, but they all work as a team to make that car, move away from the pit stop as soon as possible. So from that, I just wanted to throw a thought that it's not necessary that everybody in your team would be doing exactly the same thing as you are.
Correct.
So identifying the right kind of a value that the other person can bring in is also really important. What do you think?
Yeah, of course. So see, when you're saying employee first, when you don't expect them to know pretty much everything or to have all the skill set, you build a team with people who can acquire those skills, but they have the knack to learn. and you provide the necessary, whatever trainings and whatever you want, you can give them and at their disposal, on top of which they can learn. And 10 people having same skill set, not gonna make sense. 10 people, 10 different skill set is what we need, right? When you're building a team. So I agree to your point, Mudassar.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So do you guys have like any examples, real life examples that you came across in LambdaTest or your past team?
Yeah, so I can give you a few examples. For example, when I was building a team, the moment I thought of building a team, my first approach was look out for people who I can trust. And having said that, it's not just me trusting someone, but it's also somebody in my team trusting me as well as a teammate. So we trust each other, and that's how a team is built. So I think the core value for me to build a team definitely was, as a real life example, was how I can go ahead and depend on someone in the team, and that same person can depend on me.
Cool. So I can also answer that question because I have a wonderful, story to tell.
Okay.
So this is back when I was working with Coding Ninjas. I was building a product called Code Studio. That's a free learning platform. Right? So the idea was to launch the platform. Right? That's one thing. So that's a product problem. And then second, that how are you going to host content? Who are going to create those content? Right? So I was closely working with Gayatri. Did I lose you there? You still there with me? Mudassar is there, right?
Yes, I'm there, Afsal.
Okay. So the problem statement was to create content first, then to scale it, right? So keeping the product story aside, I'll talk about more on the content front. So I started off working with 4 good problem setters. So problem setters are to give you a context. So we have multiple different platforms to write code and submit your problems. And as in when you progress, you get some milestones, scores. So for example, CodeChef, Codeforces, right? So these are 2 competitive coding platforms. And similarly, you have LeetCode, right? So you can read through the problems, code the solution, and submit it. So that's the idea. So started off with 4 really good problem setters, right? And I was trying to mentor them. I was trying to teach what I have learned in the past. And then eventually I realized that, okay, now these guys don't need a mentor, right? They can take the ownership of what I have been doing. So keeping my ego aside, that's very important. When you are, stepping into a leadership role, right? So now the idea was to scale that team. So with those folks, right? So all of them had different skill set, different ways to think about a given problem, right? So that's what I actually was looking for. So with those folks, I started building that team, right? And you won't believe, starting with just 4 folks, by the end of 2 years, by the time I left, I had over 200 freelancer interns in-house working with me, right? So that's how big the team was. So to give you the numbers, so we were able to publish or create over 400 problems a month, write 1,000 plus blogs a month, right? So it wouldn't have been possible if I had looked at people like if I did not address the diversity in the team and what everyone in the team can do. And so that's an example that from my own experience. I hope I did not bore you guys.
I think one of the key things that I want to talk about also, it's not just about building a team in the right way that is going to help. It's also about leading the team to a successful
Correct.
path, right? To a path of
Mhm.
success, right? That's also a key.
Right.
And I think building leaders within your team is also important. So you
Correct.
really have to have just folks, working along with you, but also building the next set of leaders within your team.
Correct.
And those come with definitely situational challenges, how people overcome those challenges together. In fact, there are, I would say, there's an example that I can give is that I was training an intern for a particular, activity. And what I could see is that the person excelled well in certain technical skills.
Hmm.
And what I did was I gave him a task to lead the team technically on certain fronts. And what in turn happened was that because he got that initiative, he was able to mentor on certain technical abilities to other team members and also grow as a leader in himself as well. So I think that is an example I would want to give. What do you think about it?
Wonderful, wonderful. So I look at it as a modular approach, right? So when I said 200, so I was not mentoring all of these 200 folks. So I started off with 4 people, right? So I wanted them to lead the team now, right? So I wanted them to have 4 more people joining in their team and, mentor them, and then find the next set of leaders who can do the same, right? And on top of that ideology, which you actually fairly rightly mentioned, we've been able to build that team. So that's how exactly you build a team, right? Because at some point you cannot do everything, right? You have to find, nurture, and l- mentor those guys to be the next set of leaders. And we need to pave path for them as well, because we cannot, if you're being a hindrance to their career growth, then you don't really, deserve to be in the position that you are in.
Right, right. So let me shift the topic a little bit.
Yeah.
So customer approach, or I'd say customer first and employee first approaches are how similar or different are they? What are the different approaches you use? Are the basics same in how you tend to the both of them?
I think someone said, some great person said that customer is the king, right? And everything revolves around the customer in a typical business. But I feel that it has got a lot to do with keeping the employee also first, keeping your team also first. I'll give you an example. So, say for instance, if you're traveling on a highway, right, or say for instance a narrow street, and 2 cars just cross by each other. It's just by a blink of an eye, one driver gives an indication to the other that they will confidently pass by each other very smoothly without even having a contract. I think that's what employees do with customers. And that's what my team does with customers. They basically install confidence that before even signing that deal, how can they be confident about using our solution? Right? And that's because I have that confidence with my team, right, and with my team members. So if I show them that confidence, they definitely show it back to the customer, and it resonates with the customer, and we win customers on the basis of that. So I think it's interlinked, but definitely I would say customer obsession is the key thing out here.
So I do agree to that, and so I see it in this way. So for a company, you have a goal, and that goal is to identify the customer problem and solve it. And to solve it, you have people, right? You, me, and everybody else in the team, right? So we are employees, right? We're trying to solve customer problem. So I don't see that customer first or employee first as two different things. I think we can use it, interchangeably. So if I'm saying that customer first, then I'm meaning to say that employee first as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's also how you perceive the definition of customer, because for me, in HR, my customer is the employer. Right? So for me, everything is employee first. Your employees are your first customer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, with other teams as well, Gayatri, you rightly pointed out, for certain teams, for example, for engineering, product is the customer, right? And for someone in sales, right, the end customer is the customer. But for someone who's in the support function, the sales team is the customer. So I think interdependent teams are customers of each other. And as long as we appreciate and celebrate with each other, definitely we are enjoying successful customers.
That gives me a different, way to look at it.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's a great point. See, we're learning and we're talking.
Yes.
Learning as we go. Awesome. Yeah. So both of you are leaders, and in your journey of leadership also comes a very key factor, that's mentorship. So from leader to mentor, how do you tackle both roles, and how do you perceive or foresee that, okay, this particular team member of yours does not need a manager right now, but he needs a mentor, a friend. So how does that come into play? Or any examples that you'd like to share of any situation that has happened?
Yeah, I think to be a mentor, I think leadership should be the prerequisite for it. Because as a leader, you experience something that nobody else has experienced before. And the experience really helps you mentor the other, because you've already gone through it in some way or shape or form, right? And going from a leadership to a mentorship role also depends upon who you are working with at times. It will certainly depend upon how you work with the others, but it will also depend upon who you are working with as well. So picking up your team correctly right from the beginning, or having those people who you can trust blindly is definitely a crucial aspect here. And then mentoring on top of it is not just guiding, but suggesting them. It's not guiding, it's suggesting them. And then they can pick up their own path and move ahead.
So, well, this is again a tough question, because I've never been able to clearly differentiate who is a leader and a mentor, right? Because at some point you have to be a leader, maybe, and some point you have to be exactly what Mudassar said. You might not need a manager at some point. You have to identify that, okay, if I place this guy with this guy, he or she is going to improve, right? And if you take it to your ego and say, they cannot do it, or he or she cannot do it, it's me who only can be able to do, then that is not the right attitude towards your team. And if you are in a leadership position, then also.
Yeah.
So I think mentoring is a beautiful thing, and being a leader is a bit more, authoritative, and somebody who's making key decisions. That's how I differentiate. That's it. Simple.
Yeah, true. And I think all three of them are on a very different scale, like on a very different line on the scale of empathy. Manager, empathy negative. Leader, empathy higher. Mentor is just like ceiling broken.
But I think as a mentor, it's a lot more responsibility and accountability that a mentor holds, I believe. Because leaders can be situational as well, but mentors, with their guidance and with their suggestions, it could just make or break what the others are doing. Right? So there is a lot of ownership that is required in order to be a mentor, definitely. But having said that, it's also putting yourself in their shoes as well. And start thinking about how they would behave in a certain situation and mold your mentoring accordingly.
And I have a question here actually. So mentor-mentee relationship, right? So if you see your mentee is repeating the same errors again and again, let's say the threshold of irritating you with the same problem can differ, right? But assuming that twice or thrice is the threshold, right? How do you actually go about addressing that issue, or how do you speak to your mentee in a way that they don't feel offended, and it's more of a, what do you call it? Constructive criticism. How do you approach such a situation?
I think knowing your team is the first very crucial thing that everyone has to do. So who you're working with or whom you're mentoring with, know that person really well is really important. Be it in an office conversation or on a conversation on a cup of coffee or just an online conversation, but knowing what the person is doing, what the person's background is, what the person's skill set is really important. And secondly, the activities that he's doing is because of his background or his career that he's had, or the abilities that he has, right? So the second point I want to say is, it's not just knowing, but also putting yourself in their shoes and asking them right questions as to why they are doing that is also really important. And then, of course, once you understand that, you will understand how to tackle or how to guide them in a different way, rather than just being saying that this is what you're doing wrong or this is not correct. You can tackle them in a very different way, depending upon the person that is.
True. I mean, my threshold, it used to be really low, but then when my team grew and I was like, okay, try to understand more from their perspective, like you said, Mudassar. It's very important. And it's also very important to know them on a little bit of a personal level, so you have an idea and a knack of what's going on in their lives, as to just go all guns blazing if they make a mistake. Right? Right.
Mistakes do happen with everyone, right? I mean, mistakes happen with us as well, right? Imagine like if a senior leader comes up and talks to us in a different tone, we won't like it. Right? Why would our team members like it? Definitely. And we having said that, I think LambdaTest culture is not that way. LambdaTest culture is very acceptable. People from different backgrounds, different diversities are working together as a team, right? And in the same role also, people have different skill sets. So it's really important, as you I think pointed out, it's really important to know that person you're working with, and that makes everything very smooth.
So from what you said about the LambdaTest culture, Mudassar, I have a question for you. What about, so you've built the team, you're working here for a longer time. How have you seen the culture evolve over the past couple of years in your team? Because what your team was on day one to as it is now, I'm sure there's like a 180-degree difference.
Yeah, definitely. So initially on day one, it is all on the paper that you're starting up a new function, right? It's all on processes, and it's all about, how you do the hiring, how would you set up the team, what are different bots that you're figuring out. So all these things are there. But on the inner side, it's more about whether you want to make the company successful with what you're doing. And that's the crux of it, building a team. And the next part is resonating that with the others as well. So whoever you meet and whoever you decide to pick up in your team also should have the same kind of feeling that they want to make the company successful. They want to help the customers. They want to go ahead and do something great together. Right? I think that mutual feeling should be there in order to build a team. And over a period of time, I've I've tried to build the team in such a way that that feeling remains intact despite the team growing into a user team.
Wonderful, wonderful. And any suggestions for me? Because since I have joined very recently, any suggestions?
I think you love LambdaTest, Afsal.
I am already now. No doubt.
Yeah, so I think people are very reciprocative. They are open to suggestions. They are open to feedback, and everybody is very agile. So you can just pick up a phone, talk to anybody. Everybody, the leadership is approachable to a great extent, and you would see that difference. The vibrant culture that we have is something that's taking as a long way.
Sure.
Alright, so this brings us to the end of our session. Thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom with us. Do any of you want to say a couple of parting words before we wrap up?
Yeah, actually I've written something.
Yes.
So this is about how you can build a better culture, right? So what I feel is that empathy, pausing to listen and reflect, right? So empathy and take a pause and listen to what person has to say, and giving freedom to build a great team is actually going to build a wonderful culture. That's what I believe in. Right? So a little bit of empathy, and she can take some time out to listen. I think that's all we need to build a good culture, a good team, and flourish as a good community.
That's very true.
I think that's a really wonderful thought, Afsal. I think because they take away everybody can take away and implement this into their daily lives.
I mean, it was a great parting thought, I think. It's great. Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for joining us, guys, and stay tuned. This episode will be live on YouTube very soon. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.